Well, hey CLF, thanks for stopping by again to our YouTube channel and looking at this video series called Equipped. Today we're talking about every person ministry.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Well, welcome back again to another episode of Equipped, where we sit down with Pastor Dave, clarify and discuss topics that will help equip you to be a humble servant while growing in your faith. That's the whole reason that we're doing this. So, well, I kind of gave it away. You are.
I'm Dave York, the senior pastor.
Dun, 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 dun. And then, of course, my name is Perry Sorensen, and I'm the worship leader here. So, we have today part 3 of 7. You can always go back and check out parts 1 and 2 if you're following along. But we're looking at this thing called CLF Plumb line, right? 10-second blitz. What is it? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's basically a statement that just kind of lays out some things that we are as a church and what matter to us. It's like make sure we're in a straight line.
Very good. So it kind of keeps us on target on who we are, what do we do, right? So part 3 of 7 is every person ministry. And again, I'm going to read this one. It's a little lengthy, so hang tight. But this is what the document will say. Here it is. We believe that true reformation in the church happens when the works of our ministries of God are done by every person in the church. It is not simply the pastors of the church who are to be equipped for ministry, but all Christians. Ephesians 4:11. Ministry is not intended for the select few or for the special elite. Ministry is intended to be done by all Christians. Therefore, the ministries of CLF are not driven primarily by the church pastors or staff, but are created, done, and followed through by the members of our church. This allows the church ministries to fit with the gifts and the calling of its members. And it truly allows for every person ministry and makes for more natural or organic ministries. This means if a ministry is started in the church, it's because people in the church have a vision for it and a sense of calling to serve in it. Further, if a ministry does not have members who have a passion for it, we will prune that ministry away, right?
Yeah.
So that one's pretty detailed, and to me, it's pretty straightforward. However, what would you say is the every person ministry concept?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is one of my favorite ones because I really believe that what's been lost in Christendom a little bit, we've become very professionalized in our view of ministry. We hire guys to go do ministry, therefore they do them. And what happens is people forget that they are representing Christ every day of their life. That's the way that Jesus set it up, was we all function in our gifts and callings, and every one of us have things that we love, interests and passions and gifts. So every person ministry in the church is basically the idea that says, rather than the church telling you what you're going to do, God has gifted you with particular gifts and interests and hobbies. By His power, He wants to utilize those for His glory and to serve the people of God and to evangelize the lost. So in our context, in our church, we believe every person that calls CLF their home is a minister of the gospel.
Sure.
Every one of us are to be representing Him in some way, and we're to be serving Him in some way. Ministry is not just for the pastors. No, we all do it together. Right? So that's basically what it's about.
Yeah, very good. You know, back in the day in our old bulletins, you know, we would have the
right.
pastors listed on the back, you know, and then it would say ministers, and it would say CLF congregation, you know, which is funny to think about because I think it was a serve day that we did once upon a time. The worship team had gone to one of the senior citizens' homes, and the one gal came up to me and she said, "Are you a minister?" And I was just like, "I'm not a minister. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I am.
Yeah.
And I think God's commanded us to be. Okay, let's rethink this, right? So every person ministry, so what is it not?
So what it's not is what I referenced a minute ago. You know, if you come to, like I grew up in a particular type of model of church. It was very programmed, oriented. So we had Tuesday night visitation. We had a Wednesday night youth group. We had Awanas. We had all these different ministries that people got involved in. And the church basically then funded them and did those ministries. A church led those ministries. They came down from the pastors. They told us what to do, and then they got up in front and they begged us for volunteers or people to help, right? So what it is not is a very programmed way where the church leaders say, this is what we're doing, y'all get involved. Rather, it's the congregation who has been gifted by God coming to the leaders and saying, these are the things we have a passion for, we would like to lead.
Right.
And then the pastors getting behind that and advertising it, funding it, equipping people for it to help them in their own ministries.
Right. And then you think of it in God's Word, how it talks about just the beauty of the body having different gifts, you know, and not everybody is born with the same spiritual gifts. However, you know, if you really want a congregation to flourish, God has intentionally and sovereignly placed certain people in our congregation, so let them thrive in what they're passionate about.
That's exactly right.
I mean, you could bring up some examples, and you've mentioned a few. You know, we've got Sprouts, we've got VBS, a prayer shawl ministry, a widows ministry.
Right.
You have these things. Anybody that's on staff, we could put together things to have a widow ministry. But I don't think any of us, because we're just not there, we wouldn't have necessarily the passion for it, right? Instead, we're going to let that person who does, they're going to take the ball and run with it. And what we will do is do everything that we can through organization, through tools, maybe some supplies that they need, to get all those ducks in order so that that can be supported.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
What it is not, and I think this is one of the negative things some people say, is, oh, well, see, this is kind of like a lazy man's out, you know? Oh, we don't want to do that. We'll let somebody else do that, you know? What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I've had people say the opposite, was that, you know, this type of ministry is only for type A people, you know? So type A individuals are the ones that are going to come forward and say they want a ministry. But I can tell you that what we have experienced and seen has been, we have a lot of people that aren't type A that are leading some of the ministries and are just caring for ministries.
Sure.
I can think of people like that are leading certain ones that they've just joyfully jumped in and they're the organizer of this event or this meeting, and it's just serving a group of people. So what I would say is that it can't be an out if every one of us see ourselves as ministers of the gospel. And so my inevitable response is somebody will come to me and say, boy, what about a Bible study or a class on this topic? And I will ask them if they've gone through our leadership development process. I'll ask them, well, it sounds like you might have a passion for that.
Sure.
What about you leading it? Well, what they're saying is, no, you lead it, Pastor, and then we'll come to it.
Yeah.
And my response is, no, that my job is to duplicate ministries and to equip people to go new ministries, not to commandeer all the ministry. Right? So the goal is more people doing more things to serve the risen Christ in a variety of capacities.
Sure.
You know, and I think the other thing that's hard for people to realize is, I've had people ask me, like, what's the best way I can serve my church? And my comment to them is, well, go love your neighbor and represent Jesus in your neighborhood.
Sure.
And they stare at me like, no, I mean the church. I want to, and I'm like, no, that is serving the church. Right? We're too busy thinking, what about this being an usher or being a greeter? Those are all things that need to be filled. But we're also looking for people to say, I'm representing Christ in this world. And when I leave here, I'm still an ambassador of Christ and I'm a minister of the gospel.
Well, even that very thing, looking at the church, okay, is the roster? Where are the vacancies that need to be filled? No, that's not how we operate.
No.
If there's a vacancy, it's gone, right? Instead, until God blesses us with that person who fills that position that they're passionate about.
That's right.
That's really helpful. Some of the pushback that you get from this is this question: doesn't this limit you to what the church can offer its members?
Yeah, and my response to that would be, well, it doesn't limit us because only God has provided the people to the church. And the greatest commodity, and I use that term loosely, the greatest commodity God's given the church next to His Word and His Spirit is His people. And if the church does not take care of its people, then we are not fulfilling the mandate that God has given us. So therefore, the people that God's provided the church are the ministers of that congregation, and what is there will be enough for that congregation. Right? When we were much smaller years ago, we didn't have nearly the kind of ministry things going on that we do now. Did it limit us? Yeah, it limited us a bit. But at the same time, as people have become more equipped, more people have gotten on board to serve and lead Bible studies and lead groups and take on various mission trips or whatever it may be. and they're doing that together in community,
Sure.
seeing that this is their part, that this is the part they play.
Right, right. So, again, we worship Jesus, we serve Jesus, and we love others. How does every person ministry fit that definition?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's, the worshiping Jesus part is as we serve Christ, we're worshiping with our whole lives. We're loving Christ because we're obeying His commands to go take the gospel to all the ends of the earth. And we're serving other people because we're using the various gifts and passions that God has given us to serve Him. And every one of us are ministers of the gospel.
Right. Well, that's really helpful. And of course, just looking at who CLF is, who God has blessed us, this model works incredibly well for who God brings us each and every day. We have loads of people that are passionate about what they do, are always thinking about what they can actually add to the events calendar. And if right now, if you go on the church website, check out the calendar, there are loads of events going on and plenty of places for people to just get connected.
Yeah.
And it's because of this very model.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
On that note, thanks again, CLF, for stopping by. Send in your questions to church@clfroseburg.com. We'd love to answer them. And of course, to stay up to date with everything that's CLF, like and subscribe to this channel. And, well, we look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you.